James Mitchell had been working as a royal guard for 15 years. He knew every corner of the palace, every secret passage, and every hidden door, but there was one place he had never been allowed to enter: the private vault beneath Queen Camilla's chambers. The storm that night was unlike anything London had seen in decades. Lightning crashed across the sky as James made his rounds through the empty corridors. The royal family was away on their annual trip to Scotland, leaving only a skeleton crew of staff behind. The palace felt different when it was this quiet, almost haunting. As James walked past the Queen's private quarters, he noticed something strange. The usually locked door to her study was slightly open, swaying gently in the draft from the old windows. He approached carefully, his hand resting on his radio. Palace security was his responsibility, and any breach needed immediate attention. The study looked normal at first glance. Elegant furniture, family photographs, and stacks of official documents covered the mahogany desk. But something was wrong. The Persian rug in the center of the room was pushed aside, revealing a metal panel in the floor that James had never seen before. The electronic lock was blinking red, but the heavy door was open. James felt his heart racing. In all his years of service, he had heard whispers about Queen Camilla's private collection, documents and items she kept separate from the official royal archives. Some said it contained personal letters. Others claimed it held family secrets dating back centuries. But no one really knew for sure because access was strictly forbidden to everyone except the Queen herself. He pulled out his flashlight and peered down into the opening. Stone steps led down into darkness, disappearing into what appeared to be an underground chamber. The air coming from below smelled old and musty, like ancient books and forgotten memories. James knew he should call his supervisor immediately. This was clearly beyond his authority, but something stopped him from reaching for his radio. Maybe it was curiosity, or maybe it was the strange feeling that this discovery was somehow meant to happen. The storm outside grew stronger, and another flash of lightning illuminated the study. In that brief moment, James made a decision that would change everything. He began descending the narrow stone steps, his flashlight cutting through the darkness ahead of him. Each step echoed softly in the confined space, and he could feel the temperature dropping as he went deeper underground. The walls were lined with old stones, suggesting this vault had been built long ago, possibly during the construction of the original palace foundations. After about 20 steps, James reached the bottom. His flashlight revealed a small chamber with stone walls and a vaulted ceiling. But what caught his attention immediately were the rows of metal filing cabinets lining the walls, along with several glass display cases containing what appeared to be old documents and artifacts. This was clearly Queen Camilla's secret vault, a private archive hidden beneath her study. James had stumbled upon something that was meant to remain hidden from the world. As he moved his flashlight around the room, he began to realize that whatever was stored here was far more significant than anyone could have imagined. The silence was broken only by the sound of his own breathing and the distant rumble of thunder above. James stood at the threshold of discovery, knowing that once he examined the contents of this vault, there would be no going back. Whatever secrets Queen Camilla had been guarding were about to be revealed. He took a deep breath and stepped forward into the chamber, his flashlight beam landing on the first filing cabinet. The label on the drawer was written in elegant handwriting, but the words made his blood run cold. This was not just a collection of personal memorabilia or family documents. What he had discovered was something far more dangerous and explosive than he could have ever anticipated. James realized he was standing in the middle of royal secrets that could shake the very foundations of the monarchy. His hands trembled slightly as he reached for the first drawer, knowing that whatever he was about to uncover would change his life forever. James opened the first filing cabinet with trembling hands. Inside were dozens of folders, each meticulously organized and labeled with dates going back over 30 years. His flashlight illuminated the first folder, marked Private Correspondence 1995-2000. As he lifted it out, several photographs fell to the floor. The photos showed Queen Camilla in various locations around the world, but she wasn't alone. In each image, she was meeting with people James didn't recognize. Wealthy-looking individuals in expensive suits, some in military uniforms from different countries, others who appeared to be political figures. What struck him as odd was that these meetings seemed to be taking place in secret locations, away from any official royal duties. James picked up one photograph and studied it closely. The timestamp showed it was taken in 1997, and it depicted Camilla shaking hands with a man in front of what appeared to be a private jet. In the background, James could see stacks of briefcases being loaded onto the aircraft. This certainly didn't look like any official royal business he was familiar with. He opened the folder and began reading the documents inside. The first letter was addressed to "My dear partner" and was signed with Camilla's distinctive signature. As James read, his eyes widened in disbelief. The letter discussed the successful completion of the Geneva transaction and mentioned ensuring the funds reached the designated accounts without detection. This was not the language of royal correspondence. This sounded like something much more serious and potentially illegal. James felt a knot forming in his stomach as he continued reading. Another document referenced maintaining discretion regarding the Eastern European connections and the importance of keeping these activities separate from official royal duties. Moving to the second filing cabinet, James discovered even more disturbing materials. This cabinet contained detailed financial records, bank statements from institutions he had never heard of, and what appeared to be coded communications. The amounts of money mentioned in these documents were staggering, millions of pounds flowing in and out of various offshore accounts. One particular document caught his attention. It was a detailed plan outlining something called Operation Heritage, which appeared to involve the systematic acquisition of rare artifacts and historical items from various sources around the world. But the methods described for obtaining these items seemed questionable at best. The document mentioned private collectors who ask no questions and ensuring provenance. Documentation remains untraceable. James realized he was looking at evidence of what appeared to be an extensive international network of questionable activities, all orchestrated from this hidden vault beneath the palace. The Queen Consort, respected by millions around the world, appeared to be involved in something that could destroy the monarchy if it ever became public. In the third cabinet, James found something that made his blood run cold. These files contained detailed information about people, including photographs, personal details, and what appeared to be compromising information about various individuals. Some of the names he recognized as prominent politicians, business leaders, and even members of other royal families. One file was particularly thick and was labeled insurance policies. As James flipped through it, he realized these weren't actual insurance documents. Instead, they contained evidence of various individuals' secrets, scandals, and illegal activities. It was a comprehensive blackmail operation, designed to ensure silence and cooperation from powerful people around the world. The scope of what he was discovering was overwhelming. This wasn't just about Queen Camilla's personal activities. This was evidence of a sophisticated network of corruption, blackmail, and international crime that reached into the highest levels of society. James began to understand why this vault was so heavily secured and why access was absolutely forbidden. Among the files, he found communications with various criminal organizations, documents outlining money laundering operations, and detailed plans for acquiring stolen historical artifacts. There were also records of payments made to ensure the silence of journalists, investigators, and even law enforcement officials in different countries. James sat down heavily on a small stool in the corner of the vault, trying to process what he had uncovered. The woman the world knew as Queen Camilla, who attended charity events and supported various causes, was apparently the head of an international criminal network that had been operating for decades. The storm outside seemed to be getting stronger, and James could hear the wind howling through the palace corridors above. He knew he was running out of time. Eventually, someone would notice the open door to the Queen's study, or palace security would complete their rounds and discover his absence from his assigned post. But there was still more to explore. James noticed a locked glass case in the corner of the vault that he hadn't examined yet. Unlike the filing cabinets, this case seemed to contain physical objects rather than documents. As he approached it with his flashlight, he could see several items that appeared to be extremely old and valuable. What James was about to discover in that glass case would prove to be the most shocking revelation of all, evidence that would not only implicate Queen Camilla in criminal activities, but would also reveal a conspiracy that threatened the very legitimacy of the British royal family itself. James approached the locked glass case with growing apprehension. Unlike the filing cabinets, this display case required a special key, which he found hanging on a small hook behind one of the larger cabinets. His hands were shaking as he inserted the key and heard the soft click of the lock opening. Inside the case were items that took his breath away. The first thing he noticed was an ornate golden crown, but not one he recognized from any official royal collection. This crown was different, older, more elaborate, and covered with precious stones that seemed to glow in his flashlight beam. Attached to it was a small card that simply read, "The True Crown of Scotland, stolen 1953. James felt his legs grow weak. He had stumbled upon what appeared to be stolen royal artifacts, hidden away in Queen Camilla's secret vault. But this was just the beginning. The case contained several other items that were equally shocking: ancient jewelry, ceremonial swords, and historical documents that looked like they belonged in museums rather than a private collection. One item in particular caught his attention: a leather-bound book that appeared to be extremely old. As he carefully lifted it from the case, he could see it was filled with handwritten entries in various languages. The first page bore a title that made his heart skip a beat: "The True Lineage of the British Crown, Hidden Records, 1066, 1952. As James flipped through the pages, he began to understand what he was looking at. This wasn't just any historical document. It was a genealogical record that told a very different story about the royal bloodline than what the world believed. According to these records, there had been deliberate falsifications in the official royal lineage dating back several generations. The book contained detailed family trees, DNA test results, and sworn statements from various individuals claiming to be the true heirs to the British throne. One section, dated just 15 years ago, contained genetic evidence suggesting that the current royal line was not the legitimate continuation of the historical monarchy. James realized that Queen Camilla had been collecting evidence that could potentially invalidate the entire modern royal family's claim to the throne. But why would she do this? Was she planning to use this information for blackmail? Or did she have some other motive for gathering such explosive evidence? As he continued examining the contents of the case, James discovered a series of legal documents that provided the answer. These papers outlined a complex legal strategy designed to challenge the legitimacy of the current royal succession. The documents were prepared by some of the most expensive law firms in London, and they detailed a plan to present this evidence to Parliament and the international community. But the most shocking discovery was yet to come. Hidden beneath the legal documents was a folder labeled "Personal Claim House of Parker, Bowles." Inside were genealogical charts and historical documents suggesting that Queen Camilla's own family line had a legitimate claim to the British throne dating back to medieval times. James sat back in amazement as the pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place. Queen Camilla wasn't just collecting evidence to blackmail the royal family. She was building a case to claim the throne for herself. The criminal network, the blackmail operations, the stolen artifacts, everything was part of an elaborate long-term plan to accumulate power and evidence needed to challenge the monarchy from within. The folder contained correspondence with historians, genealogists, and legal experts from around the world, all working to verify and strengthen Camilla's potential claim. There were also financial records showing massive payments to various individuals for their research and silence. This operation had been decades in the making and involved enormous amounts of money and resources. James found a detailed timeline that outlined the entire plan. It showed how Camilla had carefully positioned herself within the royal family, first through her relationship with Prince Charles, and then through strategic marriages and alliances. Every major decision she had made over the past 30 years appeared to be calculated moves in this larger game. The timeline also revealed that the plan was nearing completion. According to the documents, Queen Camilla intended to present her evidence to Parliament within the next 6 months, during a time when public opinion of the monarchy was at a particularly low point. The stolen artifacts and blackmail materials were designed to ensure that key political figures would support her claim. When the time came, James realized he was holding evidence of the most audacious conspiracy in British history. Queen Camilla had spent decades infiltrating the royal family, while simultaneously building a case to destroy it from within and claim the throne for herself. The scope and ambition of the plan was breathtaking in its boldness and terrifying in its implications. As he carefully placed the documents back in the case, James heard a sound that made his blood freeze, footsteps in the corridor above. Someone was walking through the Queen's study, and they would soon discover the open vault entrance. James quickly turned off his flashlight and listened intently, trying to determine if the person above was heading toward the vault. The footsteps paused directly above him, and James could hear someone moving around in the study. Then he heard a voice, a woman's voice, speaking quietly on the phone. His heart sank as he recognized who it was. Queen Camilla had returned early from Scotland, and she was standing directly above her secret vault, completely unaware that her most carefully guarded secrets had been discovered. James crouched in the darkness of the vault, barely daring to breathe as Queen Camilla's voice drifted down from above. She was speaking in hushed tones on what appeared to be a private phone call, and her words sent chills down his spine. "The timeline has been moved up," she was saying. "We need to be ready to move within the next month, not 6 months as planned. The political climate is perfect right now, and we may not get another opportunity like this." James pressed himself against the stone wall, straining to hear every word. From her tone, it was clear that Queen Camilla was coordinating with someone about the conspiracy he had just discovered. This wasn't just a theoretical plan buried in old documents. It was an active operation that was apparently accelerating. "The Scottish artifacts have been secured," she continued, "and our contacts in Parliament have confirmed their support. The genealogical evidence is bulletproof, and the financial leverage we have over the key players should ensure a smooth transition when we make our move." James felt sick to his stomach. He was listening to Queen Camilla discuss overthrowing the monarchy with the casual confidence of someone ordering afternoon tea. The woman the world trusted as a pillar of royal stability was actually orchestrating its destruction from within. "What about the security concerns?" she asked, apparently responding to something the person on the other end had said. "We can't afford any leaks at this stage. Too much depends on maintaining complete secrecy until we're ready to reveal everything publicly." There was a long pause, during which James could hear her moving around the study above. Then her voice became sharper, more concerned. "The vault access panel is showing unusual activity. Someone may have been down there tonight. We need to investigate immediately." James's heart nearly stopped. The electronic lock system had apparently recorded his entry into the vault, and Queen Camilla had noticed the security alert. He quickly looked around the chamber, realizing that he was trapped. There was only one way in or out of the vault, and Queen Camilla was standing directly above the entrance. "Send Marcus over immediately," she continued into the phone, "and bring the cleanup team. If someone has discovered our operation, we need to contain the situation before it spirals out of control." James knew he had to act fast. Marcus was likely one of Queen Camilla's private security personnel, and the mention of a cleanup team didn't sound good for his future well-being. He quickly pulled out his own phone and began photographing as many documents as possible, working as quietly as he could in the darkness. His hands moved frantically through the filing cabinets, capturing images of the most incriminating evidence: the financial records, the blackmail files, the genealogical documents, and the legal strategy papers. He knew that even if he didn't survive this night, the evidence needed to reach the outside world somehow. As he worked, he could hear Queen Camilla ending her phone call and moving around the study above. She was clearly checking the vault entrance, and it was only a matter of time before she came down to investigate personally. James needed an escape plan, but the stone chamber offered no alternative exits. Then he remembered something from his years of palace security training. These old buildings often had interconnected passages and hidden tunnels that had been used for centuries to move discreetly through the palace. James began examining the walls of the vault more carefully, running his hands along the ancient stones. In the far corner of the chamber, behind one of the larger filing cabinets, James found what he was looking for: a narrow opening that had been partially concealed by years of accumulated dust and debris. It appeared to be the entrance to a tunnel that led deeper underground, possibly connecting to other parts of the palace foundation. Just as James was preparing to squeeze through the opening, he heard footsteps on the stone stairs above. Queen Camilla was coming down into the vault, and she wasn't alone. James could hear at least 2 other people with her, speaking in low, urgent voices. "Check everything," Queen Camilla ordered as they reached the bottom of the stairs. I want to know exactly what was accessed and what evidence might have been compromised. This could destroy everything we've worked for." James managed to slip through the narrow opening just as powerful flashlights began illuminating the vault chamber. He found himself in a cramped tunnel that seemed to run parallel to the palace foundations. The air was stale and filled with dust, but it appeared to be his only chance of escape. As he crawled through the tunnel, James could hear Queen Camilla and her associates conducting a thorough search of the vault. Their voices echoed through the stone passages, and it was clear they were extremely concerned about the security breach. "The genealogical records have been disturbed," one of the men reported. "Someone definitely examined the succession documents and the Scottish crown materials." "This is a disaster," Queen Camilla replied angrily. "We're so close to executing the plan, and now we have a security leak. Find out who has access to this area of the palace, and bring them to me immediately." James realized that his colleagues in palace security would soon be under suspicion, and innocent people might be blamed for his discovery. He needed to get this evidence to someone who could act on it quickly, before Queen Camilla had time to cover her tracks or harm anyone else. The tunnel eventually led to what appeared to be an old storage area in the palace basement. James emerged covered in dust and cobwebs, but he was free from the immediate danger. However, he knew that Queen Camilla's people would soon be searching the entire palace for whoever had breached her secret vault. As James made his way through the palace corridors, staying in the shadows and avoiding the main security routes, he realized that his life had changed forever. He was no longer just a royal guard doing his duty. He was now the sole witness to the most dangerous conspiracy in British history, and powerful people would do anything to silence him. James made it to his small apartment near the palace at dawn, his mind racing with the magnitude of what he had discovered. He immediately transferred all the photographs from his phone to a secure drive, making multiple copies and hiding them in different locations. The evidence was too important to risk losing. As he reviewed the images on his computer, the full scope of Queen Camilla's conspiracy became even clearer. The financial records showed connections to criminal organizations across Europe, Asia, and the Americas. The blackmail files contained compromising information on dozens of world leaders, judges, and media executives. This wasn't just about claiming the British throne. This was about controlling global power structures. James knew he couldn't go to his supervisors at Palace Security. The conspiracy documents had shown that several high-ranking security officials were already compromised, either through blackmail or financial incentives. He needed to find someone outside the system who could act on this information without alerting Queen Camilla's network. His first thought was to contact investigative journalists, but the blackmail files had shown that many prominent media figures were already under Queen Camilla's control. Then he remembered Detective Inspector Sarah Chen, a childhood friend who now worked with Scotland Yard's anti-corruption unit. Sarah had always been trustworthy, and her position would allow her to investigate without immediately alerting palace security. Before James could make the call, his phone rang. The caller ID showed it was his supervisor at the palace, requesting his immediate return for an urgent security briefing. James knew this was likely a trap. Queen Camilla's people were probably questioning all palace personnel who had access to her quarters. Instead of answering, James quickly packed essential items and left his apartment. He couldn't risk being captured before getting the evidence to someone who could act on it. As he walked through London's early morning streets, he noticed several black cars with tinted windows that seemed to be following similar routes. Queen Camilla's cleanup operation was apparently already underway. James ducked into a busy coffee shop and called Detective Inspector Chen from a payphone, explaining that he had critical evidence of a major conspiracy, but couldn't discuss it over the phone. Sarah agreed to meet him at a secure location, an old church in East London where they had played as children and where they would be unlikely to encounter any surveillance. While waiting for the meeting, James continued reviewing the evidence on his secure drive. One document that particularly caught his attention was a detailed plan for what Queen Camilla called Phase 2 of her operation. This phase involved systematically eliminating anyone who might pose a threat to her claim to the throne, including distant relatives of the current royal family who might have competing claims. The document contained a list of names, addresses, and detailed plans for making these eliminations look like accidents or natural deaths. James realized that Queen Camilla wasn't just planning to usurp the throne. She was preparing to commit multiple murders to secure her position. The scope of evil he had uncovered was beyond anything he could have imagined. When James met Detective Inspector Chen at the church, her reaction to the evidence confirmed his worst fears. As she reviewed the photographs and documents, her face grew pale with shock and disbelief. "James, this is beyond anything we've ever encountered," she said quietly. "This isn't just corruption or fraud. This is evidence of an international conspiracy involving treason, murder, and the planned overthrow of the British government. We need to get this to the highest levels of law enforcement, immediately." Sarah explained that the evidence would need to be verified by multiple independent sources before any action could be taken against someone as powerful as Queen Camilla. However, the blackmail files showed that many key officials were already compromised, making it extremely difficult to know who could be trusted. "There's something else," Sarah said grimly. "While you were making your way here, there have been several mysterious accidents around London. A genealogist who specialized in royal bloodlines died in a car crash this morning. A historian who had been researching medieval succession laws apparently fell down the stairs at his home. These could be coincidences, but given what you've discovered," James felt a chill run down his spine. Queen Camilla's cleanup operation wasn't just focused on finding him. She was apparently eliminating anyone who might have knowledge that could support or verify the evidence he had collected. The conspiracy was moving into a deadly new phase. Sarah quickly made several encrypted phone calls to contacts she trusted within various law enforcement agencies. Within hours, a small team of investigators from different organizations was assembled in a secure location outside London. These were people who had been carefully vetted and were known to be incorruptible. As James presented his evidence to this group, the reaction was immediate and intense. Senior investigators from Scotland Yard, MI5, and the Crown Prosecution Service reviewed the materials with growing alarm. The evidence was so comprehensive and damning that there was no question about its authenticity. "We need to move fast," the lead investigator explained. "If Queen Camilla suspects that we're onto her operation, she'll either accelerate her timeline or disappear entirely. Either scenario could result in significant loss of life and permanent damage to British institutions." The team began coordinating a complex operation to simultaneously secure additional evidence, protect potential witnesses, and prepare legal proceedings against Queen Camilla and her network. However, they all knew they were racing against time. The conspiracy had been years in the making, and Queen Camilla had powerful resources at her disposal. As the meeting concluded, James realized that his role as a simple palace guard was over. He was now a key witness in what would likely become the most significant legal case in British history. The evidence he had discovered would either save the monarchy from destruction or expose corruption so deep that it might bring down the entire system. The operation to expose Queen Camilla's conspiracy moved swiftly over the following weeks. Law enforcement agencies worked around the clock to verify James's evidence and build an airtight case. International cooperation was essential, as the conspiracy involved criminal activities across multiple countries and jurisdictions. Detective Inspector Chen coordinated with Interpol to investigate the offshore banking records and international money laundering operations. Meanwhile, MI5 worked to identify and protect the remaining individuals on Queen Camilla's elimination list. Several historians and genealogists were quietly moved to safe locations while the investigation proceeded. The most challenging aspect was determining how deep the corruption went within the British establishment. The blackmail files revealed that Queen Camilla had compromising information on dozens of powerful individuals, making it difficult to know who could be trusted with sensitive aspects of the investigation. James remained in protective custody during this period, as Queen Camilla's people were still actively searching for whoever had breached her secret vault. Several attempts were made to locate him, including offers of substantial bribes to anyone with information about his whereabouts. The breakthrough came when investigators raided several properties linked to Queen Camilla's financial network. They discovered additional evidence that confirmed everything James had found, including detailed records of the planned murders and the timeline for the throne usurpation attempt. Most shocking was the discovery that Queen Camilla had been systematically poisoning King Charles with slow-acting toxins for over 2 years. Medical tests revealed dangerous levels of rare chemicals in his system, explaining his recent health issues and suggesting that his death was planned to coincide with the revelation of the succession conspiracy. When confronted with the overwhelming evidence, several members of Queen Camilla's network agreed to cooperate with investigators in exchange for reduced sentences. Their testimonies provided additional confirmation of the conspiracy's scope and revealed even more disturbing details. About the planned coup, the stolen Scottish crown and other artifacts were recovered from various secure locations around London. Experts confirmed that these items were indeed priceless historical treasures that had been missing from official royal collections for decades. Queen Camilla had been using them both as investments and as symbols of her claimed legitimacy. As the investigation reached its conclusion, law enforcement officials faced an unprecedented challenge. How do you arrest and prosecute the Queen Consort of England for treason, conspiracy to commit murder, and international criminal activities? The legal and constitutional implications were staggering. The decision was made to coordinate the arrests during a public royal event, ensuring maximum transparency and preventing any possibility of a cover-up. On a crisp autumn morning, as Queen Camilla was attending the opening of a new children's hospital, she was formally arrested by Scotland Yard detectives in front of hundreds of witnesses and media representatives. The evidence presented at her trial shocked the world. James testified about his discovery of the secret vault, while financial experts explained the complex money laundering operations. Historians detailed how the genealogical evidence had been fabricated, and medical professionals testified about the systematic poisoning of King Charles. Queen Camilla's defense team attempted to claim that she was acting to protect the monarchy from various threats, but the evidence of her criminal network and planned murders made this argument impossible to sustain. The scope of corruption and violence was simply too extensive to justify through any legitimate motive. The trial lasted 6 months and dominated international headlines. Public opinion shifted dramatically as the full extent of the conspiracy became clear. Many people felt betrayed by someone they had trusted as a stabilizing influence on the royal family. King Charles, once his medical condition stabilized after the poison was removed from his system, made the difficult decision to cooperate fully with the prosecution. His testimony about the gradual deterioration of his health and his wife's increasing control over palace operations provided crucial context for the conspiracy timeline. In the end, Queen Camilla was convicted on multiple charges including treason, conspiracy to commit murder, money laundering, theft of national treasures, and running an international criminal organization. She was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Several dozen members of her network were also convicted and sentenced to various prison terms. The investigation led to reforms in palace security, financial oversight of royal activities, and constitutional protections against similar conspiracies in the future. James returned to his work as a royal guard, but his role had fundamentally changed. He was now responsible for training other security personnel to recognize and investigate suspicious activities within the royal household. His accidental discovery had literally saved the monarchy from destruction. The secret vault beneath Queen Camilla's study was sealed and converted into a memorial to the victims of her conspiracy. The recovered artifacts were returned to their proper places in the royal collection, and new security measures were implemented to prevent future theft. King Charles eventually remarried, choosing a partner who was thoroughly vetted by multiple security agencies. The monarchy survived the scandal, but it emerged forever changed by the knowledge of how close it had come to complete destruction from within. James often reflected on that stormy night when he first descended into the secret vault. His simple decision to investigate an open door had uncovered the most dangerous conspiracy in British history and prevented what would have been an unprecedented catastrophe for the nation and its people.